The Lagina Brothers. Rick is the believer who never quits. Marty is the skeptic who signs the checks. That divide between faith and proof is what drives the whole search on Oak Island. And until season 13, the Lagina brothers each played their role with consistency. But recently there's been a shift. The man who never gives up was the one sitting down, beaten. And the one who usually requires convincing was handing his brother a reason to keep going. That single inversion of their dynamic tells you almost everything about why this search has lasted so long. The believer sat down. After a cold stretch of drilling in the money pit area came back with nothing. Rick Lagina was sitting on the spoil piles at Smith's Cove, the heaps of material the team has pulled out of the ground over the years. He looked deflated. This is the brother who got hooked on Oak Island as an 11-year-old boy reading a magazine article. The one who says outright that he will not relent, that he's stubborn to the bone. And here he was, out of road. Then Marty Lagina walked up, not the dreamer this time, but the engineer, the brother who funds this whole operation and keeps asking to be shown before he'll believe anything.
I don't want to quit investigating. I just want to quit with the remote sensing. And he was fine with that.
He's right, I don't like the Q word.
He doesn't like the Q word.
In anything.
In that moment, Marty was the one carrying conviction, because the teams read on the water chemistry and the rock pointed somewhere live. The science was saying the solution channel, a water-carved feature beneath the island, was the place to look next. The skeptic handed the believer his faith back, and he handed it back in the form of data. The man who runs on belief had run dry, and the man who runs on proof was supplying the will to keep going. So what exactly is the divide between these two brothers really made of? The two engines of the search. Rick is the heart of the search. He's the historian and the dreamer, the one who has carried the money pit in his head since boyhood, and who reads meaning into the ground itself. Give Rick a stained piece of wood, and his instinct is to ask who placed it there and why. He supplies the will. He's the reason the dig is still going after more than a decade of results that would have sent most people home. Marty is the founder and the financier, and his mind works the other way. He's the cost-benefit thinker, the one who keeps the whole operation honest by refusing to believe before he's been shown. But Marty doesn't fund this search because he expects to pull treasure out of the ground. He funds it because he believes in his brother. He's been called the reluctant believer, the man whose conviction has to be earned by evidence rather than hope.
There's two quests here, right? The big quest for the treasure, and my quest to be convinced that there's really something here worth looking for. Where's my definitive proof?
That makes Marty the one person on the island whose mind the data can genuinely change. The partnership works precisely because they're opposites. One supplies the will, the other supplies the discipline and the money. Pure belief with no brake on it burns through money and ends in ruin. Pure skepticism with no dream behind it never picks up a shovel in the first place. Oak Island demands a man willing to keep digging through 13 years of disappointment, and one willing to ask every season whether the next dig is worth the cost. Rick and Marty are those two men, and the search exists in the tension between them. Across season 13, that shape keeps getting tested. The Smith's Cove moment was the first crack in it, and it wouldn't be the last. Which raises the real question of the season. What piece of evidence could possibly be strong enough to move the man who never moves without proof? The reading that reached the skeptic. The season's answer comes out of the wood. The team tested 15 wood samples pulled from various points in the dig. One of them stood apart from all the others. The wood recovered from Shaft 2A came back with the highest silver readings and the third highest gold readings ever recorded on the island. Not a small bump. The strongest elemental signal the search has ever produced from a piece of wood. For Rick, a result like that is a thrill, confirmation of the thing he already believes. For Marty, it's something rarer and more important. It's a reason. The engineer who has been funding this on faith in his brother suddenly has a number in front of him, and the number is the best the island has ever shown. So Marty does the thing that actually costs money. He commits to extending the expensive sampling program on the strength of that single signal. Marty has watched 13 seasons of empty holes and promising features that bottom out in ordinary rock. A man with his temperament has every reason to ask whether the next round of testing is money thrown after money. He spends more anyway, because the reading is strong enough to satisfy the part of him that demands a reason. The believer never needed one. The skeptic did, and for once the island gave him one. This is the divide working exactly as it was designed to. Rick would have kept digging on belief alone. Marty kept digging because the data finally gave him the cover he needs to act. And because Marty is the one who signs the checks, his decision to lean in is the most expensive vote anyone on Oak Island can cast. The skeptic moved, but moved by a reading of what? Exactly, is it the kind of proof the skeptic himself actually demands? A measurement, not a bar. The shaft. Two-way signal is an elemental reading, silver and gold detected inside the wood by instruments, an indirect measure of what the material contains. It isn't a coin sitting in a gloved hand. It isn't a bar lifted out of a hole, or a nugget resting on the war room table. And that distinction happens to be the exact thing Marty built his entire temperament around. Show me the thing. Put it in front of me. So the season hands us a genuinely unstable moment. The skeptic leaned in on data that still doesn't fully clear the skeptic's own bar. A high metal reading in a piece of wood could mean that treasure was once buried near it, close enough to leave a trace. It could also mean a number of other things the island has never ruled out because old ground holds a lot of stories, and not all of them end in gold. Rick can live inside that kind of ambiguity. He always could because faith is comfortable with an open question. The real test is whether the man who needs the object can sit in the same uncertainty. The divide hadn't closed on the spoil piles. It had moved into the wood, where both brothers would soon stand over the same result and read it from opposite sides, both men in the same hour. The season finale puts Rick and Marty in the same stretch of time, each one true to type, and that's where the real convergence happens. Not because either brother flips, because both of them lean the same direction from opposite sides. Marty goes first. He builds the hard chronology the case an engineer can hold in his hands. There are round stone shots of the kind used as ammunition centuries ago, a fragment of a hand cannon, and a coin the team narrows to a strike window between 1369 and 1371, a tight band of just a few years. Marty is assembling a timeline out of objects and dates, building proof he can defend. In the very same finale, the caisson is grinding down toward roughly 195 feet, and Rick is up on the platform reading the stained, exotic, palm-grained wood that comes up out of the hole. He sees it as a human-placed clue, a thing someone put there on purpose. The believer finding meaning in the material itself, exactly as he always has. What makes that finale land is that neither brother had to betray himself to get there. Marty didn't suddenly start believing in buried gold on faith. He followed a chain of physical objects to a date and let the evidence carry him. Rick didn't suddenly demand laboratory proof before he'd feel anything. He looked at a strange piece of wood and trusted what it stirred in him. They arrived at the same hole from opposite ends of their own natures, and that's a far more convincing kind of agreement than either one simply caving to the other. The season has slowly bent Marty toward Rick's side, and the data is what did the bending, not a leap of faith. At the same time, Rick has tempered himself toward Marty's discipline without ever once agreeing to relent. Heading into the next season, Marty swapped out the poker chips that had marked the caisson sites in the war room and replaced them with pure gold Canadian coins. The skeptic's optimism, made literal, and made entirely on his own terms. The divide didn't collapse into one mind. It converged, which is a different and far more durable thing. The clock underneath. There's something else moving under all of this. These brothers aren't young. Rick was born in 1952, Marty in 1955, and the search they started has outlasted most things people start. A steady pressure runs beneath every decision now. The awareness that this divide between belief and proof can't stay theirs forever. The next generation is already moving toward the center of the same question. Alex Lagina, Marty's son, and Peter Fornetti, the nephew, are stepping further into the work with each passing season, inheriting a way of seeing this island that their fathers and uncle never fully resolved between themselves. That undercurrent is part of why the brothers' temperaments matter so much. The divide isn't just a personality quirk. It's the operating system of the search, and it's about to be handed to people who will have to decide for themselves whether they run on Rick's faith or Marty's proof, or some blend the older men never quite found. Who inherits the divide? The divide between Rick's belief and Marty's proof was never the thing slowing Oak Island down. It's the thing driving it. The believer supplies the will to keep going when the results turn cold. The skeptic supplies the discipline and the money that keep the whole effort tethered to reality. And the season showed something new. When one of them runs dry, the other can carry both roles for a stretch. Exactly what happened on the spoil piles when Marty handed Rick his conviction back. They've converged without becoming the same person, and that's the only way a search this long stays honest with itself. But the brothers are only the most recent owners of this obsession. The ground itself has a longer memory. The very lot the team is tearing into now was owned 2 centuries ago by a man who arrived on Oak Island with nothing at all and somehow came to own land he had no obvious means to buy. A formerly enslaved man who reached this island after the Revolution and ended up holding the exact ground the team is digging today, with a fortune no one has ever fully accounted for. Before Rick's faith, before Marty's proof, before any of the cameras, that man's unexplained wealth was its own Oak Island mystery. If you want to know who he was and how someone with nothing came to own the most fought-over dirt on the island, that's what's waiting for you next.